technology in Korea through this session. Now the first session of BIX 2022, which is keynote session, will start soon. Now I'm going to give you now the participants here. We will invite the participants, Mr. An Hyun-sil, AI Economic Institute of the Korea Economic Daily. And the panelists, please, Mr. Hwang Man-soon, CEO of Korea Investment Partners Co. Limited, Mr. James Lee of Bridge Biotherapeutics, Dr. Choi Yoon-hee, Senior Research Fellow at KIT, Korea Institute for Industrial Economics and Trade. And please find your seats on stage. So with our moderator, we will have the discussions on the future and now of the bio industry of Korea. If you're using the translation devices, channel number 1 is for Korean, channel number 2 is for English. So I'd like to now give my microphone to Mr. An Hyun-sil of the Korea Economic Daily.
Yes, nice to meet you. I am An Hyun-sil from the Korea Economic Daily and AI Institute. I actually just left from the my vacation, so my outfit I think is not really suitable for this official conference. I'm sorry for that. Let me first explain why do we have this keynote discussion rather than keynote speech. So I would like to applaud the organizers' creative idea for arranging this session. So this discussion session is to shed a light on the innovative financing, innovative firms, and also innovative policies to grow and create the effective ecosystem for bio-industry growth. As you know, the economy is a sort of a very complex adaptation system. So some school of scholars said that the finance is the economy ecosystem of expectation. And they should partner with the entrepreneurial spirit of leaders. So that was mentioned by the Joseph Schumpeter. And so in this regard, we would like to talk about the today and tomorrow of bio industry. And with that, we'll first hear from Hwang Man-soon, CEO of Korea Investment Partners. I would like to give you 7 minutes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hwang Man-soon from Korea Investment Partners Co. Limited. Recently, thank you very much. Recently, biotech industry has seen in the mode of the crisis. Nevertheless, we can go back to the history, like 20 years before. Since 20 years ago, we have had our evolution. I'd like to now show you what kind of path we have taken and what can be done from now on. So like now, we will talk about it today now. So probably it's different for the different sectors, but the bio industry has been evolving. So we have about 2,000 to 3,000 companies in this industry, and each year we are seeing the creation of new startups of the bio industry. About 20 years ago, going back then, we have the 10 million one of the investment of the technology that became a big hit and be aired on the news television about the technology. However, nowadays we are having abundant technologies of the bio industry, and we have a lot of technology transfer and make export in this regard. So we are now having the upper level of the echelon. In 2005 was, I think it was milestone of the industry. What happened in 2005 is as follows. We had bio industry companies that have been losing the profits were able to enter the Korea Stock Exchange, and they were able to garner some investment from then on. And it was the opening of the possibilities of making investment with your money. And also recently, up until 2 years ago, the biotech was very booming in the stock market. So they were very popular, having the investment in here. So SK Bio Industry was located in Andong. AstraZeneca was showing the direction toward the city where the Korean company was there. And also we had global capabilities at CDO. And also we had the global kit, the diagnostics kit, which made trillions of wons as a revenue, which was never inconceivable before. anymore. So now, when it's the CDO, this company's instruction was also regarded as a bio-industry, and then they had a new drug development and having the licenses on their products. Vaccine is not an exception to that. We have seen so many achievements likewise until today. Now, having said that, let's take the past aside. No, we have to talk about what can be done in the future from now on. So, Ms. Hill of BIO said the importance of the collaboration. So when it comes to collaboration, we have to have specific classifications of the collaborations between the industries and also the stakeholders. Now, I am involved in that collaboration myself. I'm not just asking you to do that and follow to that. So I'm going to join you for this collaboration. We have IPO companies and non-IPO companies, but IPO companies are now in difficulty because they are not seeing the big profits nowadays. But what I would like to ask you is to have trust on Korea, the Republic of Korea. So we have our process of having the IPO for the startups and the companies. We'd like to see the continuation of this process. As an example, if you talk about China has the corporate tax level of 15%, and other companies have like 20%. So they have the tax benefits to the bio industry. I'm not saying that Korean government should do the same thing, but we can have some kind of favored conditions for the future growing companies. We can have some kind of benefits to those bio industry companies. So the MFA, which has been the authority of the bio-industry, and it can be the companion of the bio-industry. I told you that we have more than 3,000 companies in this industry. Then the 3,000 companies can be companions of the administration, the MFDA for MFDS, with the future plans ahead. And secondly, we need to have the production site for any product, but we are lacking the site at the ground place. So we have the people from the industry and also in the government. We really hope that we can have investments onto the site. I'm not a legal lawyer, the attorney lawyer, patent lawyer, but I'm saying that it is important to have the patents registered for these companies. So as we have seen from the other in the patent industry, we can see that we need to have the qualitative growth of these companies as well. So in the future, not just for the registration or application of the patents, the support should be given to the other processes going forward as well. Human talents are rare and precious, as you know. So for this biotechnology to be evolved until today, we were benefited by the high-trained people. So a few good men are needed further in the future. So we need to have more of the people for the semiconductor. Semiconductor is good per se for itself, but I also say that we should have more talents for the biotechnology as well. The Korean people are known to be very quick-tempered and fast going forward, but we'd like to take our time to grow our people. So if you go to the universities, colleges, and high schools, so that we can see what kind of people are just springing up nowadays, we can have the database of these future talents. And also the investment is quite rare nowadays, and also we can have the priming water for the investment. The MOTI and other government organizations, government authorities can have the projects related to the investment. If they expand such projects or programs, maybe they can entice private sectors to come in and join them together. The last thing I would like to talk about is about M&A. We do have a lot of good systems for the stock exchange like exit, but M&A is not the only way to go out of the investment. M&A has not been so much popular in Korea. I wondered why so far. Now, probably it's kind of inheritance of the businesses from family to family, so that they want to have their sons and daughters to take their businesses if they are owners of the business. So we should have a campaign that we should not have our sons and daughters to have our business. We should have a mechanism or system to have the company go public so that we can have the long-term prosperity of the companies and profitability. Another thing that I can tell you is that in addition to the slogan, we should have a system where the businesses are run by the board of directors. The BODs are really important, not just the major shareholders. So if the BOD is more activated, the M&A will be also further accelerated. I was given 7 minutes. It's now 7 minutes. Thank you very much. Please give him a big round of applause.
예, 황만순 대표님 감사드립니다.
So thank you, Mr. Huang.
투자 기업 쪽으로
Next,
우리 이정규
Lee Jung-gyu from Bridge Bio will give us the presentation.
기업들의 수명이 점점
I understand that the lifespan of companies have reduced, especially the listed firms.
그래서 대기업도 그렇고 핵심
So their average longevity has been cut down.
지금 누가 망해도 아무
And so even large companies can go under any time because we are now living in an era of massive transformation.
들어보겠습니다. 부탁드립니다.
네, 반갑습니다. 그 브릿지 바이오
Very nice to see you. I am Lee Jung-gyu from Bridge Bio,
직접 발굴을
and we are the company that discover new drugs.
학교나 연구소 혹은 다른
But in the beginning,
물질을 도입을 해서
since our inception, we partner with the research institutions, and we were mainly the NRDO for drug development. So at first, we got a lot of misunderstanding, and some people say whether we are the intermediaries, but no, we are not really a brokers, because there are a lot of points in clinical trials that require collaboration with diverse experts. And I started my company before, and this is my third company. And for the past 20 years, what I got confirmed was that we really have to secure the scientific expertise, especially when it comes to the early stage data. Korea is on par with other leading countries in the world. And also for the past 2 to 3 years, biosector and the pharmaceutical sectors are now increasingly interconnected. So a lot of talent from the pharmaceutical sectors have started the bio business. So one of the major characteristics over the past 1 to 2 years is that especially the CMC in downstream for clinical trial and development, a lot of people working in there are now pursuing the combination of the pharma technology and biotechnology. And also the industry expert perspectives until year 2010, I think the focus was on how to produce the local content and local products. But then the Hanmi Pharma succeeded the several deals with the foreign investors, and that actually changed the perspectives of Korean people. And a lot of people started to go global, and they target the global market. So a lot of bio ventures, their initial target is not with Korea any longer. Their major target is with the U.S. market. So their target agencies are no longer the FDS, but the FDA. And also the constant licensing out of the pharmaceutical product, I think this is something that's also phenomenal and very impressive. Especially a lot of biotech firms in Korea, they have secured the global deals continuously, whether small or big. So Korea is one of the countries that secured the outbound deals a lot. And also, science, industry, and capital are now being linked together to create an ecosystem for bioindustry. So some are saying that yes, there is a natural collaboration between science and industry, but the capital is an odd match. But as for the biotech, it really requires a strong collaboration and strong interactions among industry, research institutes, and also the capital markets. And I think that the linkage has already been firmly established in the biotech industry. Now, what will be the future for us? What's the way forward? As mentioned by Mr. Hong, I think the first thing that we urgently need is patent. Especially in Korea, we have a industry research collaboration group And they have a lot of generous patents for wonderful science. So generous patent means that they let others use their patents, but they don't really have the advantages or the benefits. So, for example, like so-called Salami patent, that are mainly produced from the national project. So yes, it's good for everybody, but in terms of securing their own interest, it's not really beneficial. And therefore, when we evaluate projects, we shouldn't just look at the number of patents, because there could be some hype in that. And Tsinghua University, as you know, they have about 14,000 biotech-related patents every year. And also Stanford, do you know how many patents they produce? They only produce 140 patents. Why? Because when they apply for the patents, in order to have the full protection, it requires a lot of researchers. And so Stanford University, when necessary, if necessary, then they actually fund their own research activities with their own money, and then apply for patents only when the technology becomes mature. So for the next decade, in order to ensure continuous development of the biotech sector, I think patent is very important. And another important thing is the M&A, because there are too many biotech startups, and industry has been fragmented. And also the sizes of the biotech firms in Korea are just too small to compete on global stages. So a lot of U.S. biotech firms, most of them, they went IPO, and their valuation is much higher than Korean counterparts. We have just too small firms. And as mentioned by Mr. Hwang, I believe what we need is that if biotech firms, if they inherit their businesses generation after generation, then it's not really the state-of-the-art governance, rather it's a very old traditional governance. And therefore, we really have to break away from this tradition of inheriting company to their sons and daughters of the founders. So, for example, like some founders, they have spent their entire life researching and studying, and then they create the firms, but then they try to inherit their firms to their future generation. But their sons and daughters may not be suitable for business leaders. And so IPO is more suitable path to ensure the continuous growth of the firm. But here the barrier is the share ratio, and therefore we really have to have a revision and correction for the system. So the management right should be assigned not based on the shares, but based on the BOD decision. And with that, thank you very much.
Well, you may wonder some of the issues or might have some questions, but hold them until the end of the presentations. So I'd like to ask you to ask questions later on. The best algorithm for the innovation is actually market. Nobody can deny that. So in the markets, we should have the facilitators to be played by the government. So in terms of the innovation, we really have to talk about the future and today by the industries and the authorities. Thank you very much. I am Choi Yoon-hee from Keynote. I am a researcher on the biopolicy for the last 20 years. As introduced by many of the speakers and panelists today, we know that the Korean biotech industry has been growing tremendously, and there's no denial to that. And also there is a full commitment by the government to grow it further, as announced by the government recently, and also including Lithuania and many of the other countries are regarding using biotechnology as their growth engine. Why is that? Because bioeconomy is coming to us as a new context for us. There's no denial to that. By 2030, the market of biotechnology industry in the world will be growing according to the consulting firms and the think tanks. Depending on who's talking, that can be different. But we believe that there can be more than 7% of the CAGR, and they have the maximum 13% of CAGR up to the growing to the $1 or $2 trillion of the market by 2030, 2040. So that's why every country is trying to enter into that market so aggressively. Thanks to that, Korea also was able to garner the background of the biotechnology industry. As we were starting a long time ago, we were just very small. And the milestone, as Mr. Hwang said, was 2005. In 1995, actually Korea was announcing the new plan for the new drug development. And then it was the starting of the whole project. Up until 2010, we had the CAGR of the bioindustry, of the investment size of the government has been more than 17% per year. So that was the commitment by the Korean government. As mentioned by many other speakers, we were able to increase our patent capabilities. Technology level also has been upgraded so far. So compared to 2020, we had more than 21% of the increase of the technology exports compared to the 1994. And also starting from 1994 up until 2020, we had the industry production and export competitiveness. 19.4% of production has been seen, and 22% of exports has been growing as well. And also until 2021, we also saw the expansion of the export to a greater degree. Actually, we used to be a non-producer of the new drugs, but we now have number 34 of the new drug in 2021. And also, according to the statistics, we have more than 2,500 bio-SMEs in 2019, and also we can have more depending on who's talking about it. So Korea has been a huge country in this field. We are recognized as a producer of the bio industry products. And also many of the large conglomerates are also participating in this biotech and biopharmacy industry, like Samsung as well. So are we content about this? That is the next question. You may ask the same question. So we have to leap forward further. We need to now have qualitative competitiveness as well as quantitative one. So we should have a bigger and better bio industry. We know that we have increased in size. The CAGR has been huge so far. However, the total market compared to other advanced countries is still lagging behind. So when we talk about the bio industry or bio-healthcare industry, for them to be the key leader or growth engine of Korea, there can be a possibility, but not yet there. We don't have it yet. So as mentioned by many other our colleagues here, we should have the collaboration between the public and private party as we have done so far. But we have not been able to grow the bio industry as one of the mainstay industry of Korea because still the mainstay industry of Korea are the automobiles and semiconductors. But if you look at the semiconductors and the automobile industry, they have the revenue of 17.4 trillion won and also 200 trillion won or 150 trillion won. But Korea bio industry is much smaller than that because we have only 17.4 trillion won or $13 billion in 2020 and taking 2.9% of the global market. And so combining the all new technology, we can have only the 30 billion. We should grow by 5 times or 6 times bigger in order to make this industry as a mainstream industry of Korea. Also, we have top 10 list of the world global companies in the biotechnology. Among them, we have only 2 Korean companies. So the Yuhan Corporation is ranking 92nd and GC, Green Growth, ranks 95th. So we are still small compared to the rest of the world. How can we have a breakthrough of the situation, including myself, the government, the MOT, and the associations of the bio industry should collaborate together in order to make us as a main growth engine of Korea. For that matter, I'd like to have two suggestions here. First of all, we have to have private party-driven ecology in Korea. So the ecology should be further activated by the private investment. So far, we had our private investment, yes, but we have to have more. So we need to promote the private investment in the R&D and production value chains. This is important because what I believe is that the Korean government investment into R&D on biotechnology is actually the biggest one. So we have 6D, BTIT, and 6T, the BTIT, NCT, and so on. So BT takes about 20% of the share by the government. So we have 3.7 trillion won of investment by the government. And also for the IT, it is about 3.5 trillion won of investment by the government. So we can say that the BT is actually number one here. But IT is different because IT has much bigger size of the private investment. But BT's case, we have 50% of the public and private investment. The private is a little bit bigger than the public one. However, we still have a long way to go. It means that compared to the GDP, we have reached the threshold for the government to do any more. Now is the time for private parties to take their turns to make more investment. So I told you about the large corporations like Samsung and many others. In Korea, we do not have the largest corporations in the world in terms of the biotechnology. So it will be different from IT because we do not have the large international global companies in Korea for BT. But to be there, we have to have further promotion of the Korean companies to have further investment. We do have the phase 3 clinical trials, and we might have some markets or the market failures. But in order to have the betterment of the environment for the post-market and downstream, we should have bigger financial environment. The companies that are now working on this should be able to scratch the backs of the companies and industries that they are feeling pains. So there have been some limitations on the policies in the finance sector. That is an example of mega fund. Mega fund was not possible so far, but mega fund can be allowed in the future. I'll be finishing in 1 minute. We have so many startups nowadays, but as mentioned before, are they really on high quality? Are they sustainable? Are they able to grow into the median companies? That is their homework and challenge to overcome. So we need to have a better exit strategy for them. And then also we have to have a chance to grow their size in the new environment. M&A was another means. I don't have to elaborate on that. And also we need to put the value on the companies. The companies should be the core of the whole industry. Secondly, in order for the ecology to be driven by the companies, we should have the better and efficient policies. We have many people from the government today. The bio-industry policies in Korea have not been that bad so far. No, we can evaluate that as desirable so far, but it has not been so much efficient so far. So policy efficient should be improved further. Compared to the 50 countries in the world, we're just almost median range. So why is that? As a policy making advisor, I have been thinking about this as well. Probably we were just doing the R&D for the sake of R&D so far. Of course, R&D is important because the private parties didn't have the abilities for the R&D, so the government's role is to do that on behalf of them. However, what I emphasize here today is that we should have the policies for the government and for the market. They should have a balance of the policies and efficiency. We have to put more emphasis on the M&A, as mentioned today. And also pricing control should be also in part of it. Authorization and licensing should be also included as well, so as we saw from the practices by the MFDS. And also we should have more efficient implementation of the policies. So in order to do that, we should have the collaboration governance in policies. There can be many suggestions by the stakeholders as have been done. And also about the technology level, as mentioned by many other speakers, we have the Time article in 2021 to have the 8 trillion won of the revenue, the expenditures. Out of them, about half of them, the 4 trillion won, is for the public organizations like universities. The rest of them is used by the private companies. Then what happens afterwards? Now we have the half and half expenditure of these public and private parties. The end result should be that there should be a synergy effect, but we are not able to enjoy such a synergy effect so far. We should have more synergy in the future. So now is the time for us to change our policies. Thank you very much.
Now I'm going to give you some questions, and we'll be following in the reverse order. So, because Dr. Choi just finished her presentation. As they mentioned, we have a lack of efficiency for policies and also problems with the governance. And also bioindustry has not been the key focus industry for Korea yet. So putting them in summary, I believe that in the past, the Ministry of Information has been the key agency to grow the bio industry. But then a lot of research institutes have made their voices, and there must be some central agency for that. So Dr. Che, can you please answer this shortly?
Actually, no, I shouldn't take longer time than you think to answer the question. We do have suggestions by the private parties to the government, and I was also involved in that in the proposals so far. But bio policies it takes a lot of money and for the administration, and we now have a new administration recently in power this year, so it will be very difficult. So I have some alternatives, and as follows. The first one, we can have the PPP coordination center in the organization, and I'm proposing this to happen. So probably it can be a coordination committee between the public and private parties. I have my experiences of doing this so far. Suggestions by the committee itself, and it can be limited in making them into the policies. More desirable thing is to have the R&D related authorities like the Ministry of Science and Technology and the MOT that can have a link between the government organizations and the public parties. They have the better access and an easy approach to that, so they can be used. Thank you very much, and I will now going to Mr. Lee Jung-kyu.
So you talked about the culture that we have to move away from. And also we should not be obsessed with the share ratio. But in order for entrepreneurs to focus on innovation without having concerns on share ratio, there must be some regulatory system, right? Yes. So I think we really have to break the current system. So management right, is it the right or responsibility? Under the corporation system, management right is the responsibility that managers should bear. And also the shareholders to have the right. And in Korea, the concept of management right, I think is closely related with the share ratio. So there has been a very close binding between them, but is it really efficient? For example, we don't really have the silver bullet when it comes to the governance structure, so we shouldn't have the cookie cutter, one-size-fits-all answer for that. But for companies that have to have the foreign investment, especially the biotech firms, the current standard governance structure in Korea, we have to think about whether it is really efficient for bio industry. So the future alternative could be we have to have the management activities centering around the BOD, and shareholders meeting should also have a more power for policy making. And for this, especially the biotech industry that require the long-term investment, long-only fund should participate more so that they can have some influence on decision-making process and governance structure. So my suggestion is that whether the pension fund or the government fund, I think that they have to have a long-only fund for several sectors. So I think that was a very good proposal, and I think National Pension Service should also have a very independent governance. And do you think that the differential voting rights should also be introduced? I'm not quite sure about that.
아까
Mr. Hwang, please. You earlier talked about the COSDAQ, the stock market, differently from COSP. In order for COSDAQ to be a future major player, they should be separated so that they can be Korean NASDAQ. So differentiation might be needed. What do you think about that? So for any opinion, there is no absolute answer. So we can have the 49% versus 51%. So I heard about the separation as an idea, and some of them might be agreeable. But for the people working in the Korean exchange, they say that the Korean per player is actually not so much possible. So financially speaking, they should be thinking about the detailed action plans on how to separate them. They should have the legal basis for that to make that separation possible. If we have the feasible background in the law, that can be yes to that question. But the differentiation might not be favored by the investors. But I myself agree on that, because as you get older, the ratio of ownership or equity can be lower and lower. So you do not have the bigger profit after making investment for 10 or 20 years. But if you have the regular pro rata system of the ratio, it will not make sense at all. So if you want to have the differentiated the ratio, it cannot be eligible to all the people. So it can be only for the fourth industrial revolution industries selectively. That might be possible. Thank you very much. Dr. Choi's presentation, she talked about the mega fund. So as a person who is making investment as a player, so you talk about the fund of funds. The fund of funds is coming from the government, actually. It's coming from the revenues of the government. If you think of the financial industries privately, like the insurance companies or the bank companies, they can make a mega fund out of the private funds so that they can grow into that. So that's also an opinion from the sector. Mr. Han, what do you think about that?
일단 메가 펀드와 관련해서
So
사실은 1조
regarding the mega fund, some are talking about like 1 trillion won worth fund, but I think this is not really realistic because it's very difficult to secure 1 trillion won of fund. And also we talked about the fund of fund and mother fund, and yes, this is a brilliant idea.
그럼에도 불구하고
But
어디 가서 메가 펀드 만들지 말자는 얘기도 안 하고
although it's a great idea, but
어찌됐든지간에 1조 원이 아니면
I don't really talk about that because I don't think it's realistic.
거기에서 사람 특유의 돌파구를 뚫을 것 같아서
And so rather than mega fund, if we have even smaller scale fund, I believe the Korean people with their passion and aggressiveness will find a breakthrough anyway. So we have to start fund in whatever form.
The governments so far in Korea have been promising that they're going to just change the policies for their bio-industry. They're going to have the breakthrough changes. And they have all lied to us. Do you think that this administration is not lying to us? Are you sure about that? So be frank about this government. Well, I think that they will end up having lied because it will take time. It will take more time than needed. Then what? What can we do? Well, probably there can be other options, but as Mr. Hwang said, it's not about the regulation changes. It can be the strengthening of the roles of the MFDS. And probably there can be a good solution to that that will just solve other problems. Because regulators should know more about the things, but the people in the MFDS are now so busy, they do not have time to do more. So if they have the growth of that organization, there can be a solution. So that means that we have to grow more people in that organizations. I don't think that the increase of the human talent will solve the problem. Rather, what I think is that out of the people in the bio industry, if you know the businesses, and like Mr. Hwang, if you know finances, then you can just go to the MFDS. You can take a role inside the MFDS. I cannot take a role in the MFDS. I cannot take it. In order not to have lied, within this year, probably we can have recruited more than 100 people within this year for the MFDS. That will solve the problem. Yes, give him a big round of applause for that suggestion. Now is the time for wrap-up. Historians say this. Well, one sees something as a coincidence, but history says that it was a turning point of the industry, and that is called as a frozen event, according to the historians. If you look at the Korean biotech industry, they are wiggling and woggling, but they are ready to go into a big jump. They are now in a transitional period, and they are just now being entangled with the frozen events. So after many, many years, we can look back this time as a very meaningful milestone, as the historians will estimate. So I believe that through the market and also the private parties, that these are probably big signs for us to go further. These difficulties can be a good sign. So the governments and the industry people should answer to that phenomena. One thing I'd like to give you is as follows. Semiconductors have been successful, but semiconductors are not alone to be able to give the cash cow to 50 million people of Korea. Probably real cash cow must lie in somewhere else. What I see here is that when fourth industrial revolution industry is on the right track, you might feel the transformation of digitalization, and BT will be on top of it in the future. That's my wish and dream in the future. So with that, I would like to close this keynote discussion session. Thank you very much.
고맙습니다. 정말 열띤 토론을 함께 보여주셨습니다.
Thank you very much for the heated debate and discussion, and also a very informative and aggressive, thought-provoking discussion. Thank you very much. So far we have had a session on the present and tomorrow of the bio industry in Korea, and this will conclude the first session. We will have 10-minute break, and after that, we will resume the session. We are slightly behind the schedule, but after 10 minutes break, we are going to have the technical session on how the AI-guided new drug development has been developed. So we are going to resume the session at 11:20. So this will be only the 4-minute break. And also in room 307, there is another parallel session, so please to participate. And with that, thank you very much.